It is officially NFL mock draft season where the New York Jets have been projected to land elite edge rusher from Penn State University, Abdul Carter. And we got to break this down here on Jets Digest. So what's up, guys? I'm Matt. Hopping right into this video, we got from a mock draft from Sports Illustrated. In Miller's analysis, two key metrics this season indicate Carter could help bolster the Jets' pass rush, which has shined but taken a step back after the loss of players last year. But that's where Carter factors in, as he pivoted from split duty between linebacker and edge in his first season to a full-time pass rusher in 2024. He has compiled 8 sacks while getting pressures on 16.4% of his snaps, which is 5th in the nation. This guy, Abdul Carter, is a really, really special prospect who the Jets have been linked to now and have the potential to land coming up in this upcoming draft. He stands at 6'3", is 260 pounds, and is a guy who can play linebacker or edge rusher. This is a guy who you might see the picture and the team and the number, and he might remind you, just based off of that, of Micah Parsons from Penn State, who's also number 11 at Penn State. But he's actually just like Micah Parsons because Micah Parsons plays linebacker and edge rusher, and it's not that surprising of a connection because the coach, James Franklin for Penn State, he picks players when he's recruiting, goes out to the high schools. He looks for players who can play the role of the players who are leaving his defense. So when Micah Parsons got drafted into the NFL, he knew he needed to recruit another guy who could play just like Micah Parsons. And that's when they picked up Abdul Carter. And also he's wearing number 11 for Penn State, which is a number that is historically worn by one of the best players on their defense or a player who they expect to be growing into one of their best players. It's like 88 for the Dallas Cowboys. They gave 88 to their best receiver. So like Michael Irving wore that, Des Bryant wore that. Then they drafted CeeDee Lamb in the first round and gave it to CeeDee Lamb. But what's also exciting about Abdul Carter is he could really help the Jets rush the passer because this year we've seen the defense hasn't been as good as we expected it to be. Of course, in the last couple of years, we've spent a couple first-round picks on edge rushers, being Jermaine Johnson and Will McDonald. And Will McDonald looks really good so far. Jermaine Johnson looks good, but there's a saying when it comes to the NFL draft, don't let a good player stop you from drafting a great one. So I really believe that Abdul Carter could be a great player because he is not Micah Parsons, but he's trending just like Micah Parsons. This really could be a game-changing player in the NFL if the Jets would be lucky enough to draft him. So the other guy who the Jets have been compared to have been people think they're going to draft. This is via CBS Sports. From Ryan Wilson, CBS Sports. In his mock draft, he has both of the quarterbacks that the Jets could draft off the board. So he believes that New York would be looking to beef up their defense with Michigan's defensive tackle Mason Graham, who has a chance to be special. And he loves the idea of lining him up to Quinnen Williams. Now, it's very interesting that he would talk about Quinnen Williams when referring to Mason Graham because Mason Graham is a player that reminds scouts a lot of Quinnen Williams. Mason Graham being 6'3", 320 pounds, so he's a really big, heavy player. And he's an elite run stopper, but not only is he a run stopper, he's one of those rare interior defensive linemen who can also rush the passer. So this is a player who, if he was next to Quinnen Williams, could really wreak a lot of havoc. Right now, the Jets are starting Javon Kinlaw, who isn't really the most, he's not the best secondary defensive tackle. He's a guy who we'd rather have in a run support role who we could rotate in, and it wouldn't be the starter for the defense. We definitely want to upgrade at that defensive tackle 2 spot. And in the event that the next GM for the New York Jets would want to maybe get rid of some salary space, Quinnen Williams would be able to be moved because Mason Graham could really fill the shoes of what Quinnen Williams has become on the Jets because he's really the same type of player. He's a really, really, really high ceiling guy. He was someone who, coming into this season, was in the mix to be the number 1 overall pick, actually. So if he was available for the Jets at 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever they're drafting, I think he would be a really, really good player because it's been really frustrating. It feels like every single game, the defense can just run right over the Jets defense and the tackling isn't good enough. But Mason Graham is a guy who could really help with this problem. And he's someone who could really help the Jets bolster that run support. And he is someone who is also a great guy to have in the locker room. His teammates love him, and he would be a really good player for the Jets. So now looking at some other edge rushers who the Jets could go after, since they definitely need some help on the edge. These guys have been, I'm sure, mocked in different mock drafts to the Jets, but not the ones that I've been looking at this week, but we do have to talk about them because there's people that the Jets could take. And one of the first guys is Georgia's Quinnen Williams. He is another edge guy, but unlike the other guys, he's not a pass rusher yet. Scouts think he has all the tools to develop into a high-level pass rusher. They're calling him more athletic than the guy who was drafted number 1 overall, Trayvon Walker, drafted number 1 overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars before Aiden Hutchinson and Sauce Gardner a couple years ago. Now, I'm not sure he's that athletic, but what he does do really, really well is this guy stops the run really well. He's always in the right position on the run. He shuts down rushing lanes. He always seals the edge when he has to. What I really like watching him on film is he always seems like he's always in the right spot to blow up a run. When a guy's coming his way, he always closes the hole. He's always pushing his blockers back. And even though he doesn't get a lot of sacks, he displays some, hand movement, and he has started to use some pass rushing moves that would suggest that paired with his athleticism, he could in the future develop a higher level pass rushing repertoire of moves and could be someone who could potentially get after the quarterback a lot. However, I do think Abdul Carter is going to be the guy with the higher pass rush ceiling because Abdul Carter has shown that he's been a better pass rusher in college. And also another guy who I think would be a better pass rusher than Quinnen Williams would be Texas A&M's defensive end Nick Scorton. This guy last year at Purdue led the Big Ten in sacks. He had, I think the number was 10 sacks. Then he transfers over to Texas A&M's amazing defense, and he's a standout at all times because this kid is that good. His motor just never shuts off. He's someone who's always getting after the quarterback, and he reminds me of Myles Garrett. Even though he doesn't display just like Quinnen Williams, he doesn't have a ton of pass rushing moves yet, but the motor is just something you can't teach, and it's really awesome to see. And if you're a Knicks fan, this guy's like Josh Hart. Like, you know how Josh Hart's always running after guys. This dude never gives up on a play, is always running 100 miles per hour, like his hair's on fire, is always getting after the quarterback. I really think this guy could be a game changer as well for the Jets. So, like I said before, don't let a good player, Jermaine Johnson, stop you from drafting a great player. Nick Scorton really could be that extra pass rusher that the Jets need. He's a lot more physical, and right now, Our defensive ends, they're good at getting after the quarterback. Hassan Reddick, just in case you don't know, he's a free agent. This year, he's expected to leave the Jets in free agency. Will McDonald is not undersized anymore, but he's still small. So we could really use physical guys like the Quinnen Williams, like the 6'4", 284-pound Nick Scorton. I can't wait to see how fast this guy runs because I promise you this dude is really fast. At 284 pounds, it's just not even fair. This guy would bring the physicality to the defensive end position that the New York Jets are really missing right now. He would be a huge pickup. Quinnen Williams, I really think that run support is something the Jets are really lacking. However, make no mistake, the best 2 picks from this, the best pick for the Jets from this whole video, if you're going to take away one thing, Mason Graham is definitely one of the top 3 prospects that the Jets need to look into because it's so rare to find a defensive tackle who is this elite and his success at the next level is this projectable. That's why Jalen Carter 2 years ago was thought as the number 1 player in the draft by most draft analysts before he got into the drunk driving incident, street racing incident, whatever it was. There was cars involved, alcohol involved. It was a classic Georgia defensive player thing. You can look it up if you want, but Mason Graham is the guy that the Jets could really build their whole defense around. Him and Quinnen Williams might be borderline unfair, but the rest of the defense got to tackle as well. So if you guys enjoyed the video, please like, subscribe, and please leave in the comments which one of these guys or a different defensive end. There's another guy, James Pierce, who's another high-level, potentially drafted defensive end that the Jets could go after. Please let me know in the comments which defensive ends you guys would go after in the draft if it was a defensive end. So thank you. If you stuck along this video, thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your night. Go Jets.